What is the price of a kingdom? For King Adewale, it wasn't gold, land, or silver. It was the life of the only person who truly loved him. To save a dying land, he made a deal with a shadow, a secret realm for a sacred life. But the spirits of the bush never give a gift without a hidden sting. Tonight, we journey into the whispering forest to discover why the richest king in history is also the most cursed. The kingdom of Aborin had not seen rain in 3 harvests. 3 harvests. That is not drought. That is a curse. The sun was a hungry lion those days, crouching low on the horizon at dawn, then leaping, violent and merciless, across the sky by midday. It ate the moisture from the soil. It drank the rivers until they were nothing but memory and cracked mud. It scorched the backs of farmers who knelt in fields that gave nothing back. King Adewale sat on his throne and received his people's suffering like a man drowning in still water. There was no storm to fight, no enemy to face, only silence, only dust. Only the hollow eyes of a kingdom looking to its king for an answer he did not have. He had tried everything the traditions demanded. He had sacrificed 3 white rams at the shrine of Adewale. He had sent for the most powerful babalawo from the forest edge of Aborin, an old man so ancient his skin had folded over itself like the pages of a forgotten book. Old Man had thrown his divination chain, studied the pattern on his tray for a long time, and then looked up at the king with eyes that carried a warning. The land is not sick, Kabiesi, the old man had said. The land is waiting, but what it waits for, I cannot say. Some doors a king must open himself. He was a king with no solutions, and for a man whose entire identity was built on being the provider, the protector, the one who never failed. This was not merely political disaster, it was the slow death of his soul. He had one son, Prince Kola, 14 reigns old, bright-eyed, and built from the finest parts of both his parents. The boy had his mother's laugh, wide and sudden like sunlight breaking through clouds, and his father's jaw square and certain. Kola was the only thing in the palace that still felt alive. He would chase the palace cats through the corridors. He would sit beside his father at the throne and ask questions about the old wars, about the founding of Aborin, about the stars. He called his father Baba with a tenderness that undid the king every single time. Kola did not fully understand the depth of the crisis. Children rarely do. He knew there was hunger. He knew the people were sad, but he trusted completely and without question that his father would fix it, because his father always fixed everything. That was what fathers did. That was what kings did. That trust, innocent, absolute and unearned, would become the sharpest knife in this story. It was on the 42nd night of the 3rd failed harvest that the stranger came. He did not knock, he did not announce himself. He simply appeared in the doorway of the great hall like smoke taking shape. First, just a darkness slightly darker than the room. Then a figure, tall and thin, wearing robes the colour of old bark. His face was neither young nor old. His eyes caught light from no visible source. The palace guards saw nothing. The dogs did not bark. The torches closest to him bent their flames away, as if unwilling to illuminate him too clearly. "Kabiesi," the stranger said. His voice was smooth and deep, like water moving over flat stone. "You have been praying to the wrong doors. Adewale should have called for his guards." He knew it. Something animal in him knew that the correct response to this visitation was fear and distance. He was a king who had run out of options, and desperate men hold still when something approaches them in the dark. "Who are you?" the king asked. "Fee am what the forest sends when a king's need becomes loud enough to be heard underground," the stranger said. Sat uninvited, in the chair across from the king. He moved like a man who had never once been told no. "I know what ails your land," Adewale said. "I also know what can save it. But more than that, I know what you truly want. You do not merely want rain, Adewale. You want to be remembered as the greatest provider this kingdom has ever known. You want abundance so total that no king after you can ever surpass what you built. You want a legacy that outlives your grandchildren's grandchildren. The king said nothing because every word was true. Adewale reached into his robe and withdrew a small object. A carved wooden key, black as charcoal, covered in symbols that seemed to shift when not looked at directly. There is a place, Adewale said, setting the key on the table between them. A realm that exists between this world and the next. We call it Iko-Lalafia, the hidden kingdom of abundance. Gold grows from its soil the way cassava grows from yours. Food replenishes itself. Rivers run with something richer than water. A king who rules Iko-Lalafia never wants for anything. He becomes untouchable, eternal in his provision. Adewale stared at the key. He could feel warmth radiating from it, though the night was cold. The price, he said, because he was still a king, and kings know that everything has a price. The gateway to Iko-Lalafia can only be opened by the blood of pure love freely given, Adewale said. No, your blood, Kabiyesi, you are too compromised by ambition. The blood must come from the one who loves you without condition, without question, without record of your failures. He paused. Olodes landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Adewale felt the ripple move through his Chulmarate. No, he said immediately. You know now, but you will think about it tomorrow night and the night after. You will hear your people crying, and you will feel the weight of your uselessness, and the no will begin to crack. They always do. He stood. He took the key from the table and placed it before the king. When you are ready, Adewale said, bring the boy to the first light before Devonford. Iko-Lalafia will be yours. Your people will have their reign, and your name will be carved into history. He walked toward the doorway. The darkness seemed to receive him rather than simply surround him. He was gone. Adewale sat alone for a very long time. The carved key sat on the table, warm and patient, like a living thing. Did not sleep that night. No, the next 7 days. That is how long Adewale between himself and the darkness. 7 days of watching his kingdom hollow out. 7 nights of sitting with the key and telling himself there was another way. On the 8th day, he found Kola in the palace courtyard, drawing maps in the red dust with a stick. He had invented a kingdom. He had named its rivers, its mountains. He had even named its king. When Adewale leaned in to read the name, he found his own, King Adewale the Great. He reached down and touched his son's face. Kola leaned into his hand, the way children do, completely without reserve, with the full weight of their trust. The king's decision was made in that moment. No, because love left him, but because love was not enough to stop a man who had decided that his legacy mattered more than his conscience. He told himself it was for the kingdom. He told himself Kola would become part of something eternal. He told himself many things, as men do when they are about to do the unforgivable. That evening he went to his son's chamber. Kola, he said, sitting on the edge of the boy's sleeping mat. Tomorrow before dawn we go hunting, you and I, in the whispering forest, the way my father took me when I was your age. Kola's face lit up with pure, uncomplicated joy. Just us, Baba? He asked. Just us, the king said. He could not look his son in the eyes when he said it. They walked side by side through the sleeping village, the king and his son, moving toward the dark tree line of the whispering forest in that deep indigo hour when night has not yet released its hold. Adewale carried the carved black key inside his robe against his chest, where it pressed like a coal. Kola walked with the easy confidence of a boy beside his father. No fear, no guard, nothing but the simple happiness of being chosen for something. He talked about the animals they might see. He told his father about a dream he had where a great eagle carried him above the clouds, and he could see all of Aborin from above, green and full and thriving. "It looked beautiful, Baba," Kola said. "Like it used to, like it will again." "Yes," Adewale said, "like it will again." The whispering forest earned its name because the wind moved through it differently than anywhere else, not in gusts but in long, sustained sighs, like the breath of something enormous lying just beneath the surface of the world. The trees here were ancient. Their roots surfaced from the ground like the knuckles of buried giants. The canopy was so thick that even in daylight the forest floor lived in permanent dusk. They entered it together. The sound of the outside world disappeared the moment they crossed the tree line. The forest had its own acoustics, deeper, stranger, layered with sounds, but had no clear source. Moss glowed faintly along the ancient roots. Eyes amber and unblinking watched from the dark between the trees. Kola reached up and took his father's hand. "Are you afraid, Baba?" he asked, sensing something he could not name. "No," the king said. "Good," Kola said, squeezing his hand. "Because I am with you." They reached the clearing at the heart of the forest, a circular space where no trees grew, where the earth was black instead of red, where the air tasted of something ancient and electric. A Galak was already there, standing at the center still as a carved figure, his amber eyes catching light from nowhere. Kola stopped, his grip on his father's hand tightened. "Baba," he said quietly, "who is that?" Adewale did not answer. He reached into his robe and withdrew the black key. The moment the key appeared, the clearing changed. The earth at the center began to glow, a deep pulsing gold, like a heartbeat seen from inside. The chest, Adewale spread his arms wide. A hum rose, not of sound but of something beneath sound, felt in the bones and teeth. "It is time, Kabiyesi," Adewale said. Kola turned to look at his father. Really look, understanding, began to form on his face. Terrible disbelieving, the understanding of a child realizing the world is not what he thought it was. "Baba," Kola's voice was different now, small, stripped of its earlier lightness. "Baba, what is happening?" The golden light in the earth intensified. The wind in the forest went completely still. The silence was absolute and enormous. Bale looked at his son one last time, and what he saw in that boy's face, the confusion, the fear, the love that was still there despite the fear, the trust crumbling in real time, like a wall in real time. What he saw nearly destroyed him. Nearly, he pressed the key into the black earth. The earth cracked open, no violently, elegantly, terribly, like a wound that had been waiting to open. Golden light poured from within it, warm and blinding, and from the center of that light, portal, tall, arched, breathing, shimmered into existence. Through it something extraordinary was visible, rolling fields of gold, towers of plenty, rivers that gleamed like liquid amber. Baba, poured from the edges of the portal, white and fast, curling around Kola's feet, his legs moving upward. The boy reached for his father, his hand stretched out, his eyes still trusting, God help him, still trusting, even now, found his father's face one last time. Adewale stood still. He did not reach back. The wind carried the scent of betrayal through the clearing like a living thing. The mist took Kola slowly, no cruelly, that was the most horrible part of it. Gently, almost tenderly, the way a river accepts something offered to it, and then the boy was gone. No body, no sound, no trace except the shape of his small footprints in the black earth, already filling with golden light. Adewale was gone too. He had gotten what he came for. Behind the king, far in the distance, back toward Aborin, the first rumble of thunder. The king turned once to look back at his kingdom. He could hear it, low and building, the sound of the sky preparing to break. The rain was coming. The deal had been honoured. Aborin would be saved. He stood at the threshold of Alafia and listened to the first drops of rain fall on a land that no longer had its prince. Then he stepped through the portal. Alafia was vast, breathtaking gold everywhere, not the garish, vulgar gold of human greed, but something deeper, richer, the gold of a world built entirely for abundance. Fruit trees heavenly, with harvest, granaries taller than palace towers, rivers that ran clear and plentiful, cattle fat and gleaming in green fields, architecture of surpassing beauty stretching to every horizon. And silence, perfect, total, infinite silence. It was everything Adewale had promised. Every detail of every dream Adewale had ever carried about what a kingdom could be was here, made real, made permanent. He walked through it slowly, turning in a full circle, taking it in. And then he noticed the streets were empty. The palace doors hung open but dark inside. The fields were full but still. No hands harvesting, no voices in the markets, no children running, no elders sitting in the shade, no one at the windows, no one anywhere, no one. He walked faster through the market, stalls overflowing with food, but no merchants, no buyers, through the palace, grand beyond imagination. But every room empty, every seat vacant, every torch unlit, through the streets wide and beautiful and completely, utterly deserted. He ran through corridor after corridor, through courtyard after courtyard. He called out. His voice bounced off golden walls and came back to him empty. He was alone. No, alone the way a king is sometimes alone. In a crowd, no. Alone the way a man feels in a moment of grief. Alone the way a man is alone in a grave. Alone permanently, without exception or relief, he was a king. He had his kingdom. He had his legacy. He was also the only living soul in it. In the distance, beyond the walls of this eternal, empty, abundant kingdom, he could hear rain, the sound of rain falling on Aborin, growing louder, the roar of it, the relief of it, and beneath of it, the rain, something else, voices, voices rising not in joy, but in horror. The people of Aborin searching for the king and the prince, finding neither, finding the black key pressed into black earth, at the edge of the whispering forest, finding the boy's footprints, ending in the clearing, pressed deep, facing his father, and then simply stopping. The rain came, the soil drank it in, the rivers filled, the harvests would return. Aborin would survive, and Aborin would never forgive its king. An elder woman stood in the rain, face upturned, tears mixing with the water. She did not look relieved. She looked like she was mourning, and she was angry, and she was certain of what had been done. He fed us, she said, and he emptied himself to do it. No of gold, no of effort. He emptied himself of his heart. The people of Aborin, one by one, turned their backs on the palace. The throne room stood empty. The crown sat on the seat of a chair with no one in it. Alafia, gold everywhere came, gold every want, so no one to share it with. Open and empty in the centre of all that gold. Then faint and far away, as if carried across the boundary between worlds by the wind, he heard it, the echo of a child's voice. Justus Baba, he built his legacy. He sits in it still. They say the rains have come to Aborin every year since the crops grow. The rivers run full. The children are fat and loud and alive. And when the elders tell the story of King Adewale, they do not tell it as a tale of a man who failed his kingdom. They tell it as a tale of a man who failed himself, who looked at everything that made him a king, his people, his love, his child, and traded it all for the idea of being great. There is a word in the old tongue for a man who sacrifices the real for the image of the real. The elders do not say it aloud anymore. They say instead, do not become Adewale. The empty throne of Aborin slowly became overgrown with green vines, nature reclaiming what ambition had abandoned, the kingdom living on beyond its broken king. A king who loses his heart has no business leading a people. Do not forget to subscribe and share this story with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Drop in the comments, what would you have done in the king's place? We will see you in the next tale.